today on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Joined today on the podium by Susan Milgaard, the sister of David Milgaard and the daughter of Joyce Milgaard, by James Lockyer, who's the attorney for David Milgaard, as well as a number of other people who were wrongfully convicted in Canada, and my fantastic parliamentary secretary, Gary Anandasangri, who is my right hand. Plus tôt aujourd'hui, notre gouvernement a déposé un projet de loi qui, une fois adopté, va réformer la façon de rectifier les erreurs judiciaires. Le projet de loi C-40 créera une commission indépendante d'examen des erreurs du système judiciaire. La création d'un organisme indépendant chargé de rectifier les erreurs judiciaires est un objectif que je poursuivais depuis longtemps, de même que les deux personnes en l'honneur desquelles le projet de loi est nommé. J'aurais beaucoup aimé qu'il soit ici aujourd'hui pour en être témoin. David Milgaard spent 23 years in jail for a murder he did not commit. He maintained his innocence throughout his life, even after exhausting all his appeals. David's mother, Joyce, also believed in David's innocence. She made it her life's work to convince the justice system as well. Joyce advocated tirelessly for David's release, assembling a team of family, friends, and lawyers, many working for free. Together they fought to have people listen and to look again at David's case, and through her persistence, she won her son's freedom. When David got out of prison, he became an advocate for the wrongfully convicted, helping others to seek justice. His mother did the same. These were extraordinary people. This bill, C-40, is named in their honor, the David and Joyce Milgaard's Law. While David and Joyce are both gone, I'm grateful to have David's sister, Joyce's daughter, Susan, with us here today. And I'm also glad to be joined by James Lockyer, who's dedicated his life and considerable legal talent to fighting for the wrongfully convicted, including David Milgaard. I'm grateful to James and to all the lawyers, law students, and paralegals who have put hundreds of thousands of hours for free into this work. Pourquoi une telle initiative? Il est rare que des erreurs judiciaires se produisent, mais cela arrive. Et souvent, ces erreurs ne sont pas découvertes que bien après la fin du processus pénal. Une condamnation injustifiée ébranle la confiance du public à l'égard du système de justice, lequel vise à le protéger. Elle a des conséquences dévastatrices sur la personne condamnée à tort, sa famille et sa communauté, et aussi sur les victimes, leurs familles et leur communauté. Cela fait des années que les experts militent pour un meilleur système de révision des condamnations criminelles. Mon propre mentor, l'ancien juge de la Cour suprême Peter de Carteret-Corey, a réclamé des changements au système après avoir révisé l'erreur judiciaire ayant mené à la condamnation de Thomas Sofano en 2001. Son rapport et plusieurs autres ont recommandé la mise en place d'un système plus accessible et moins lourd, un système plus rapide qui impliquerait davantage les victimes dans le processus, un système qui ne dépendrait pas du ministre de la Justice du moment pour prendre une décision finale. As minister, I've seen the process up close. When I look at the files that come to me, I see a clear pattern. The applicants are overwhelmingly white men, and our prison populations do not look like that. This tells me that the system is not as accessible to women or to Indigenous peoples or Black or racialized people who are disproportionately represented in our criminal justice system. We have to change that. Some of these files go back decades. We need a system that moves more quickly, both for people applying as well as for victims. And the process needs to be independent. This is no criticism of the excellent public servants who review applications and provide me with advice. But to build trust in the review process, we need it to be independent of government. The existing system has not changed in over 20 years, and it's time to act. Alors, quel est l'effet du projet de loi C-40? Une commission indépendante d'examen des erreurs du système judiciaire sera créée. Elle remplacera le processus de révision ministérielle existant. La commission examinera les affaires, mènera des enquêtes et décidera quelles affaires devraient être renvoyées au système de justice en raison d'une possible erreur judiciaire. Elle n'annulera pas une condamnation, elle renverra plutôt une affaire devant une cour. Les demandes présentées par les personnes susceptibles d'avoir été condamnées à tort pourront être examinées au moyen d'un processus plus simple et plus efficace. In places such as England, Scotland, New Zealand, and Australia, we have seen the improved efficiency of a dedicated independent commission. The Commission will also provide funding for outreach programs and resources to support applicants during the review process, with a particular focus on those with limited means. The commissioners appointed to run it will be required to reflect Canada's diversity and to take into account the overrepresentation of certain groups in the criminal justice system, such as Indigenous peoples and Black persons. Notre gouvernement reconnaît que les erreurs judiciaires peuvent également avoir un effet dévastateur sur les victimes d'actes criminels. C'est la raison pour laquelle la nouvelle commission créera de nouvelles mesures de soutien pour les victimes et leurs familles. Il s'agira, entre autres, d'un coordinateur des services aux victimes qui aidera à expliquer le processus d'examen et de possibilités d'être avisé au sujet de l'examen ou même de participer au processus le cas échéant. Nous allons traiter les erreurs judiciaires possibles tout en protégeant les droits des victimes. Les condamnations injustifiées sont rares et notre système fonctionne bien en général. La plupart des erreurs commises dans le système de justice pénale sont traitées par les cours d'appel, dont la Cour suprême du Canada, d'où leur existence pour cibler et corriger les erreurs. Il continuera d'en être de même. Nous parlons aujourd'hui de ce qui se passe quand une affaire ne se trouve plus dans le système de justice, bien après l'épuisement des appels. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of a few other people who helped get us here today. I owe a debt of gratitude to the hard work of former Justices Harry Laforme and Juanita Westmoreland Traoré, two esteemed retired judges. They held extensive consultations with a wide range of stakeholders on the potential structure and mandate of the new commission and provided our government with options on how to proceed. I want to single out Innocence Canada and its predecessor, the Association in Defence of the Wrongly Convicted. Thank you for your support and your leadership, your work over the years. I want to thank my former professor, colleague, and mentor, Irwin Cotler. As a former Justice Minister, he understood that this needed to be done, and he conveyed that to me in his usual way after I got named. I also want to acknowledge author and professor Martin Friedland. Martin is one of Canada's foremost criminal law scholars, my first legal employer, and an important advocate for the wrongfully convicted. Marty, I'm sorry, you're going to have to change the footnotes to your most recent manuscript. I'd also like to thank my special advisor in the current process, retired Supreme Court of Canada Justice Maurice Fish, for his wise guidance. And of course, again, to David Milgaard and his mother, Joyce. When I met David in 2019, I committed to him personally that I would work to make the system better. I promised him. I hope I did not break faith with him with this bill. Many of you know my fondness for music. When I think of David, I often have the melody and the lyrics of Wheat Kings by the Tragically Hip rolling over in my head. 20 years for nothing, well, that's nothing new. Besides, no one's interested in something you didn't do. 23 years for nothing in David's case. That day in 2019 in my Hill office with James Lockyer, David signed my copy of the Tragically Hip album. And I'm going to treasure this forever. I hope that all parliamentarians keep David and Joyce Milgaard's fight for justice for over 23 plus years and will join me in ensuring a swift passage of this bill. To phrase it the way the HIP would have phrased it, we have a duty to be interested in something David and others didn't do. David and Joyce Milgaard's law is a critical piece in building confidence in our criminal justice system and ensuring that it protects all Canadians. Thank you. Merci. I'd like to invite first Susan Milgaard and then James Lockyer to say a few words before we open this up to questions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to say what my mother would say right now. It's a glorious day. Hallelujah. She fought so long and so hard, along with David, for this day. It's an honor to be here and to be able to at least represent them since they can't be here. But I know she would also be very proud to say that she's a Canadian and all of Canada has done this. Yes, there's the beautiful people like Minister Lametti, and you can never forget James Lockyer and all the Innocent Canada people that helped us, and the media all the way through our case, pretty much all the way through our case, that supported us, investigated for us, and even now continue to help to support the wrongfully convicted. We need that. Don't let that go. 2 generations have gone already. Let's stop it now in its tracks, and please, please keep pushing forward for the people that are still there and still need your help. Thank you. God bless. James?
Bonjour, good morning. My name's James Lockyer, and I'm here for Innocence Canada. It's 30 years, pretty well to the day, since the Association Defence of the Wrongly Convicted was founded at the same time as Guy Paul Moran, wrongly convicted of murder, was released on bail pending his appeal back in February of 1993. And we created the association. It had 2 objects. One was to help those who were wrongly convicted. The other was to advocate for the creation of the commission that the Minister is put before Parliament today. They've been 30 long years, but they seem quite short now we've got to today. And it was 26 years ago that we managed to finally, once and for all, prove David Milgaard's innocence through DNA testing, which not only proved his innocence, but also proved who the real perpetrator of the murder of Gail Miller was back in the streets of Saskatoon in January of 1969. We should always remember that one of the most important aspects of freeing the wrongly convicted is that it also means we might discover who actually committed the crime, which is what we did with David Milgaard. The actual perpetrator was ultimately apprehended through that DNA testing in 1997. And Innocence Canada has been advocating ever since for the legislation that's been presented before Parliament today. Minister, you just spoke of hoping that you haven't broken faith with what you said to David Milgaard back in the summer of 2019 when you met him, and I was privileged to be there as well. And the answer is no, you haven't broken faith with him. It's just a terrible shame that he and his mother are unable to be with us today. Because today is the best possible news for the wrongly convicted in Canada. Finally, we have a tribunal that's independent of government, independent of the Department of Justice, that is going to review claims of wrongful conviction, something that we have been advocating for those 30 years. It's a sea change for the justice system. I've been in the justice system for 46 years now, starting in 1977. And there is no doubt at all in my mind that this is the biggest change to the justice system and the best change one could imagine for the justice system, to create a back end, so to speak, for those who have been wrongly convicted, who did not managed to establish that in the appeal procedure, but now we'll have a chance to establish that with this new commission. To realize the importance of the commission is just to say to yourself that if this commission had existed back in the early 1970s, it can safely be said it would have saved David Milgaard 2 decades, at least 2 decades of those 23 years that he spent in prison. And that alone is reason to be so grateful to the Minister for bringing forward this legislation today and keeping faith with David Milgaard. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take your questions.
Minister, why has this taken 30 years to put in place?
I don't know. It has certainly been a personal mission of mine since I was named minister in 2019. After the elections in 2019, I got this into my mandate letter, pushed to get it in my mandate letter, and I pushed to get it in my mandate letter again in 2021. As you've seen from my speech, it's a bit in my DNA, given my past, the relationship I had with Peter Corey and with Erwin Kotler, following cases as they came through the system. I don't know why, I have to admit, but I made sure that if I got a chance to do this, I would get it done, and I'm doing my best to get, this is the first step to get it through Parliament, and hopefully we get it across the line soon.
How do you see it speeding things up? How do you see it making the system more efficient?
Well, the experience in places like the UK, Scotland, New Zealand has been that it moves more quickly and more flexibly with respect to the applications that come forward. I have seen about a little over one case a year since I've been minister. I think I've had 5 or 6 cases, and in every case, every time I look back and see that it's taken a long time to get there. We're really hoping that the commission will be more proactive, will move more quickly, because it will be the only thing that it's doing, as opposed to we had a dedicated group in the Justice Department, but it is hopefully. It will be the case, and the experience from other jurisdictions has been the case, that it moves more quickly because it's dedicated to that cause.
To order, or to, forgive me, can they order a new trial? Do they recommend a new trial?
They can order a new trial, or they can order a new appeal. So they have all the powers that I currently have as a Minister of Justice.
Does it need to be unanimous? I know it's 5 to 9 members. Does it just be a majority of that, or does it need to be unanimous?
We'll let the committee work it out. My sense is it will be a majority of people working on the file, and it may not be all that whole group working on any given file. I mean, that's part of the efficiencies, I think, that are envisaged in the system, that there will be a chair and then there will be a number of different committee members. So we'll leave it up to the committee to organize how, the commission to organize how it works, but my sense is majority rule.
And have you had any discussions with the NDP, your partners in this, to see if you can get this across the line through the House?
Have had some discussions. Certainly I've had discussions with the NDP, but I suspect there will be wider support than that. Daniel Turp, former member of the Bloc Québécois, certainly this is something he has supported in his past publicly, and has in fact worked with James Lockyer from time to time. Look, there isn't a good reason to want to keep people who are innocent, who've been found guilty but are innocent, in jail. There isn't a good reason to put up an efficient system to allow those new evidence, DNA evidence, other things that often come out 5-10 years after a trial to not be heard. I mean, I can't see a reason to oppose it.
Any sense of a timeline when this could be in place, especially in your message to those right now who say they're wrongfully detained?
I have 2 answers to that. First of all, to those who are currently in the system, there will be a transition provision whereby they can opt for the new system or stay in the old system until that works its way through. That's the technical answer. Certainly as a minister, I'm going to try to get this through as fast as I can. through the parliamentary process. I think I've got good support in the House and in the Senate. And then we'll move as quickly as possible to get this thing up and running. I can't give you a date, but I can give you can't give you a date. I can give you a guarantee of my goodwill on this, and I hope I've proven that thus far.
So how will having the commission independent make the applications more representative in terms of for, let's say Indigenous people?
Well, I think the idea here is twofold. First of all, the Commission is going to be proactive in its mandate in terms of education and outreach. And as I've mentioned cryptically in the speech, there will also be resources and encadrement for people who might want to approach the Commission. But it's, as I said, it's also been the experience in the UK, other places, that more people will apply with lesser offenses. Like we've seen a number of very high-profile homicide cases, which eventually get to me. They, for better for worse, attract the help of innocence projects and lawyers. There's a whole swath of other people, many of whom statistically must be Indigenous or Black, who may have been asked or convinced to plead guilty, even though they weren't. And this is meant to be accessible to them, and in some cases even help them with the framing. So the experience in other jurisdictions is such that more people apply, more people with lesser crimes apply, and in the Canadian context, with the outreach that we hope this commission will be doing, we'll also reach out particularly to Indigenous and Black peoples who are overrepresented in the criminal justice system.
So I'm just wondering though, in terms of a group of people that may not have a lot of trust in the justice system or believe that it's already weighted toward them, how will you convince them to use this avenue that after they probably don't have a lot of trust in the system?
Well, hopefully the fact that it's not part of the Ministry of Justice or the Department of Justice, and it's not under the final signature of the Minister of Justice, whoever is sitting in my chair, will be something that attracts people to use this and again, increases accessibility. Once again, that's been the experience in other jurisdictions. So we're not reinventing the wheel here.
M. Lametti, loin de moi de vouloir diminuer l'importance de l'annonce aujourd'hui, j'aurais des questions sur d'autres sujets, si vous permettez, notamment ce qui a été déposé à Québec aujourd'hui en ce qui a trait à l'aide médicale à mourir, ou dans sa volonté d'élargir l'accès, le gouvernement du Québec indique noir sur blanc que les troubles mentaux ne sont pas considérés en quelque sorte comme une maladie. Vous interprétez ça comment, vous? Et est-ce que vous craignez peut-être des problèmes d'harmonisation éventuellement?
Je dois lire le rapport, évidemment, donc je ne l'ai pas lu encore. J'ai un peu occupé aujourd'hui avec d'autres choses. Mais évidemment, je vais lire le projet déposé au Québec par la ministre Bélanger.
Est-ce que vous craignez des problèmes d'harmonisation éventuellement, que ce soit aussi avec les demandes anticipées? Québec est prêt à être là, vous non? Comment vous allez gérer ça?
Il faut voir les détails. Le comité mixte spécial a aussi recommandé qu'on va vers les demandes par anticipation. Et donc, comme j'ai dit, je dois regarder le projet de loi et j'espère évidemment d'avoir des conversations avec mes homologues au Québec et voir. Mais jusqu'ici, on a eu une bonne relation avec Québec, avec les autres provinces dans les discussions sur le sujet et donc on verra.
Sur C5, Québec vous accuse de nuire à la lutte contre les violences sexuelles avec ce qui a été adopté, des peines trop clémentes pour des agresseurs notamment. Allez-vous modifier la loi pour rendre inadmissible l'infraction d'agression sexuelle aux peines à purger dans la collectivité? Est-ce que ça fait partie de vos options? Est-ce que vous étudiez ça?
Alors, je vais pas donner aucun commentaire sur des cas qui sont devant les tribunaux, soit les décisions rendues parce que ça pourrait être porté en appel, soit les décisions où la peine n'a pas été déterminée encore, mais on parle des arguments présentés, des plaidoiries présentées par les avocats. Je vais pas me mêler là-dedans, ce serait inapproprié de dire. Mais pour...
La porte est ouverte ou pas? Je veux dire, est-ce que vous... Parce que là, il y a quand même...
Le projet de loi C5 vient d'être adopté. On n'a pas touché les peines minimales qui existaient pour les agressions sexuelles, le cas échéant. Oui, il y a une possibilité d'ordonnance sur sursis, selon la loi. La loi est là vraiment pour viser la surreprésentation des peuples autochtones et des Noirs dans le système judiciaire. Et ça demeure un but primordial pour moi en tant que ministre de la Justice. On a un système où on donne une certaine marge de manœuvre au juge au moment de détermination de la peine, après avoir entendu les plaidoiries des avocats dans l'espèce, le procureur et l'avocat de la défense. Et c'est l'un des atouts de notre système. Et donc, pour l'instant, le projet de loi vient d'être déposé. Évidemment, on va surveiller la mise en œuvre de la loi, mais c'est trop tôt.
Je comprends que ce n'est pas dans vos cartons à court terme, là, ce côté-là.
On va surveiller la mise en œuvre.
Mr. Lockyer, can I ask you, you had said about this announcement today that this is a sea change in the system. Could you explain why you think it's such a significant change?
Well, we've been advocating for an independent body to look at wrongful conviction claims. First of all, the fact that it's been the Minister of Justice up to now is bound to put off people applying. If you imagine you've been wrongly convicted, it's like the fox going to the hounds, in a way, is how you might view it. And as well, it puts the minister in a difficult position because there are political aspects to some claims for wrongful conviction. Some of the claims get politicized in the media, and I'm not being critical of that. I think many people through media have secured their exoneration as a result of that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it will speed up the process. The minister has a lot of jobs, a lot of duties, a lot of responsibilities. We're now going to have 7 dedicated commissioners whose task it will be to investigate wrongful convictions. They're going to do it a lot quicker. Thirdly, the system, the ministerial system, has always suffered from the problem that it's not an investigative body. It has accepted applications and essentially required the applicant to do the work up front to show that he or she has been wrongly convicted. The new system is going to be more of an evidence-gathering system where the commission will have to play the role of the investigator as well as the decision maker. So it means that there's much greater access just for that reason as well, that a person making an application isn't going to be rejected out of hand because he or she has nothing to support their claim, but rather there'll be a duty on the commission to undertake an investigation into the validity of the claim, including the searching for new evidence. So I think those 3 things are the primary reason that we've been advocating for it. And we've looked to, the ministers talked about England, Scotland, New Zealand. And I've always found it very telling that the English system, which came into being 25, 26 years ago now, has since coming into existence, and they have a very similar to what is being created here in today's bill, not identical, but very similar. Their independent tribunal has now successfully sent more than 800 cases back to the court in that 25-year period. Our system of ministerial review in that same 25-year period has sent back 29 cases to the courts. 29 versus more than 800. Admittedly, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales is about twice our population. So take that into account and you can still see the enormous difference between their system and our ministerial review system. And that's why we need the new system that we're getting.
You said you've been advocating for this for decades. What did you face along the way? Was there resistance, and why do you think it's taken this long?
Well, we've tried to get the support of the various parties. We've had the support of the Liberals over time, the NDP over time, the Green Party over time, and the Bloc over time. The Conservatives have never responded one way or the other. we're very hopeful that the Conservatives are going to come on side as well. I think whenever you're looking for legislative change, the reality is you're a long way down a long waiting list. And we thought particularly that Irwin Cotler, when he was the minister, would bring forward this legislation, but unfortunately he lost the office sort of in the middle of getting it ready. And we've been pressuring where we can, as best we can. And the present minister, Minister Lametti, as you heard, met with David Milgaard, myself, and many others, starting in 2019. I myself met the minister 4 different times now on this issue, and he's been a great heir for us, and now we finally have the legislation. So I guess the best thing to do is look forward rather than back at the last 30 years.
Ms. Milgaard, can I ask you what you think, I guess, the difference this system could have made in your brother's case?
Well, I think, as they said, probably about 20 years, which is a pretty good chunk of change in my heart.
How so? How do you think this would have sped things up? How do you think this would have made his case move?
Well, as they're trying to explain the process, I think the process would be completely different. I mean, nobody wanted to really do anything to support getting David's application through. We were turned down a multitude of times by the minister's office, not this minister, but others. And if we had not had to go through those months, and I'm talking, it can take years just to get all your material together to have it ready, and then be turned down, and then no, it's not good enough, and you take the same material and you turn it around in a binder and you send it again, and they say, no, that's not going to work. And then you do it another time in a different colored binder, all the same material, and it went through. So explain that to me. That was 3 reviews we had to go through. That can't happen in the independent review board. That's the difference. And that's a lot of years for a lot of lives, not just the inmates, the families too.
What was that like to go through?
If I leave out the profanity, I have nothing to say. It was that bad. I mean, I still live it. I still wake up at 6:30 in the morning going out to my car and feeling the fear that Gail Miller felt when she was murdered at 7:30 in the morning on a cold winter day. I still feel that. It's still within me. All the years that I lost with David because they moved him out of province and I couldn't go and see him when I was growing up. He was my John Wayne in my life. They took everything from me. I didn't even know who I was. I still don't at times. But I have always had the support and love of my mother and David that have gotten me through it. James is almost like a member of the family. David Asper that worked on our case. There's just been so many wonderful people that do help you through it. But for me, it's another day today. As beautiful a day that it is, it's another day lost to the lie that started in the first place. Do you understand that? And it'll never be gone from the family, from any wrongfully convicted person. You cannot get past it. You have to learn to live with it, and you have to learn to love around it. And that's all I can do. Okay?
Do you think that this is going to make things any easier for people, families in your position?
Absolutely. The more knowledge and wisdom and exclusiveness and inclusion that happens for people, the more we become part of the earth that we should be and part of everybody. I mean, it could be happening to your neighbor next door and you don't even know if people aren't talking about it. It's like all the trouble with mental illness. We weren't talking about it before. Nobody knew about it and everybody wanted to hide it. The more that you can bring all these things out into the open, the more chance that we have of getting somewhere and getting the right people behind you to make the changes that are happening. If not, where do we go? Nowhere. And we become nothing. And we don't want to be nothing, do we? No, we don't. So stand up, say something, do something. End of conversation. It's that easy. Thank you.
Yeah, Minister Lametti, on accessibility, how will this process, practically speaking, be different for somebody looking forward to bring an appeal in terms of what they're going to have to prepare or how they approach? How will this new system be different from what currently exists?
Well, again, as we've outlined, and as James has outlined, as I've outlined, first of all, there will be more people dedicated to it, working more proactively, including with outreach and education. So hopefully that initial barrier to accessibility will be reduced, and we also hope for a more inclusive process for accepting files, as well as the responsibility for not just waiting for a whole binder, as Susan has just said, to come in, but helping to build the evidence in cases where parts of it is incomplete. So it's meant to be much more proactive.
So will the standards be different? Like right now, if whoever's applying has to have a full binder with proof and all the work done, will the standards be different in terms of under the new system? They don't have to have as much proof when they apply? I'm just trying to understand if there's a different standard there.
Well, what is important is the legal standard, and we have made that legal standard more exclusive here. It is now the case that a miscarriage of justice may have occurred as opposed to likely occurred in the current standard. And we've added, and it is in the interest of justice to add, because there may be some relatively minor miscarriages where it's not in the interest of justice to move forward, but so we have a standard, again, modified from other jurisdictions. We think it's a good standard, and that helps, I think, also with accessibility. As to the actual composition of any file, I'm going to leave that up to the Commission as they work through individual cases, and it will differ from case to case. But it has to meet that legal standard.
Est-ce que vous attendez une vague de demandes au début?
Donc, ce qui se produit déjà, il y aura je dirais, pas une grosse vague, une petite vague au début, parce qu'il y aura des cas déjà dans le système qui vont se transférer de l'autre système, ou bien des personnes qui ont pensé avant, non, j'ai pas de chance, ça vaut pas la peine. Maintenant, peut-être ça vaut la peine. Donc oui, mais après, ça va se stabiliser.
Vous pensez que ça peut être opérationnel dans un horizon de combien de temps?
J'ai pas donné un échéancier. Je peux pas, mais je vais m'engager d'abord de faire passer le projet de loi dans la Chambre et devant le Sénat, et ensuite de créer l'institution, de composer la commission et de les pousser vers leur départ. Mais je ne peux pas donner un échéancier.
And just a question on C-39. Are you confident that the Senate is going to have enough time to study and vote on it, given that there's only one sitting week left before the March 17th deadline?
I'm pretty confident. They have been ready for this. They took an active interest in the previous law. So there's a good body of senators who've already seen this, and it's just a 1 year. It's just a 1 year delay. So I'm pretty confident that they will move expeditiously.
And a call of questions online. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. We have one question from Geneviève Beauchemin. Please go ahead.
Hi there. I wanted to ask you, for those who may have had an application, who applied in the past and hit a wall with the former criminal conviction review group, what is how much hope do you think they could have now that this new commission it will be in place?
Well, they will be able to apply. I don't know if they will be more successful or not. I can't guarantee success, but they are entitled to apply even if they have under the previous system had a file not accepted.
But do you think that the commission is such that there will be cases where there have been several submissions to the past review group that were turned down, and in this commission, then they will find a better form for them?
I think it's possible. James Lockyer behind me says it's highly likely. You can quote him on that, Geneviève.
Well, perhaps, Mr. Lockyer, perhaps you could answer a little bit more fully that question, and why do you think that?
Or yes, I do. I think it's highly likely. In fact, I've got some in my head as I stand here that I can think of, but I won't name them. I think it's likely for two reasons. First of all, the inherent weaknesses in the present ministerial review system, including, as the Minister just mentioned, that the test is reduced by the new legislation. No longer does a person have to show a likely miscarriage of justice. Now they have to show, or they will have to show, that there may have been a miscarriage of justice. And that may sound like a subtle difference, but for us lawyers, it's not at all subtle. And secondly, as I noted earlier, and as the Minister just said, the new Commission is going to be a lot more proactive than the Criminal Convictions Review Group were under the old system. That's not to be critical of them, but it's just a fact of life that the new Commission is going to be able to investigate and further claims of wrongful conviction a great deal more than under the ministerial review system. So if I had someone come to me and say, look, I've been turned down under the ministerial review system, is it worth having another crack at it on the new system? I may well say, depending on the case obviously, I may well say yes, I think that's a very good idea.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Merci tout le monde. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, same as we.